Hey everybody, welcome on into ClayShare Live. I'm Jessica Putnam-Phillips, and today is, well, it's our wheel throwing double feature. So we're going to be doing two wheel throwing tutorials for you. First, in the ClayShare Live broadcast, that's right now, we're going to be making these wide bottomed mugs. So here's a couple I just threw. And then at 6:15 in our primetime broadcast, just for premium members of ClayShare, we're going to be making, what's over here? We're going to be making gourd vases and lanterns. That's right. That's right. That's what's happening. But that's not till 6:15. Right now we're going to make these cute little mugs. This came about because when I first started making pottery, this was a shape I kept making. And I don't know why I was making this shape. It just happened to be the shape that I was really into at the time. But then I left this form and I hadn't come back to it in, we won't say how long, but it's been a while. So I thought, we'll do this, and I had a request for these actually, and I thought, okay, people want to see how to make these, and gonna do it. So that's what we're gonna do tonight. Going to bed now where you are. Good, get some rest. This will be here tomorrow. The replay will be available forever for free. If you can't find it on Facebook or Instagram, you can always find it on clayshare.com, or better yet, go download the ClayShare app. If you have not done that yet, just go to your app store, search for ClayShare, download it. It's free to download, and you can watch these free broadcasts, or you can sign up as a premium member and get unlimited access to thousands of videos, hundreds of classes, and lots more good things. So, what do you guys think about these? Think these are going to be fun to make? I think so too. All right. Let's go ahead and get started. I'm just going to put these upside down. You might notice that's how I have them. You know, after you throw them, once they've stiffened up enough that they release from the bat, or if you've cut them off, you can turn them over. And then you let the bottoms dry a bit. And the reason you turn them over is you don't want the rim to get so dry that you can't attach a handle up here. If you wait too long, then you'll have some cracking issues. You know, everything with pottery is timing. And if you wait too long to put your handles on, your handles could crack. Okay, I pre-wedged some clay. Some of you saw my fancy wedging table, the brick patio. It's not my usual, nor is it my permanent, but you got to make do, and you got to keep working in the studio, you got to keep going. So yeah, you use what you got. This is about 1.26 pounds of clay right here. So it's not a big piece of clay. This is my go-to size for making pretty much any mug. You know, if you want to make these a little larger, you could move on up to about 1.5, so 1.5 pounds of clay if you want to. But I wedged this up and it's ready to go. So we're just going to start. I'm going to adjust the folks on Instagram so they can see a little better. I'm going to move you all over here too. So buckle up. We'll get you on. Don't worry. There. Okay. So if you all have questions while I'm doing this, feel free to ask. I'm going to be throwing, so I'll be looking at the wheel quite a bit, but if you, you know, really need a question answered by me, just keep typing it in and I'll see it. So we've got the clay here. The bat system I'm using is made by Studio Pro Bats. It's their Space Saver bat system. It's this really great bat attachment with these little inserts that go in, and it just makes it really nice to do a lot of smaller pieces. People ask all the time about my wheel. This is a Bailey Pro XL wheel with the big splash pan. And then I'm sitting on a drummer's throne, which is a drummer's stool. It's not that big of a deal. It's not a very expensive one, but I did get one that went to 23 inches, I believe, because I like to throw higher, so I'm sitting up kind of high. Okay, so we got our clay on. Now we'll turn the wheel on. And we're just going to smack this on center. That just kind of gets it close to center. And we're going to get the clay wet. I do have an intro to wheel throwing video. So if you're not a premium member, you can check that out for free if you want to learn a bit more about wheel throwing. And I go over the mechanics of throwing, body posture, hand positioning, and all that. Of course, premium members, you know, we've got a ton of wheel throwing classes on there for you. So if you're struggling with centering, one of my suggestions is to try clay that's softer. Really hard, stiff clay can make it difficult when you're learning. All right, so let's talk about what we're making. We're making a wide-bottomed mug. Now, when we're starting, normally when I start a mug, I start about this diameter right here. So I've got my calipers and a ruler, and I'm going to measure it for you. So this is where I usually start when I'm making a mug. So that is about 3.5 inches in diameter, which is a good diameter for a regular mug. But we want wide bottom mugs. You're not going to be able to make that bottom wider once we open it up and pull up the walls. You need to establish the bottom's width now. So this piece of clay that I'm working with is going to be not wide enough, right? So we need to compress it a bit more, pressing downward and widening it. So that little cake we make is a bit wider. More like we do if we were going to have a shallow bowl. So now let's take a look and see where we're at. Right here. So remember we were about 3.5 before. Now we're at 4 and just over 4.5. So it's almost 1 inch bigger than we normally make, which makes sense because we want that wide bottomed mug to happen. So you have to establish the width of the bottom before you start making the piece, because if you don't, you're going to be fighting it to try to make a wide bottom, and what you're going to get is you're going to collapse your wall. All right, now we can go ahead and open it up. So I just use my thumb to find the center, and then I press down. I'm just using my index finger, and then you pull backwards. These two fingers here in a hook motion. And then we go back in and compress the floor. We just get rid of any extra clay. Now with these, often I don't trim the bottom, I leave the bottom flat. But if you want to trim a foot on here, you can. Just think about it when you're making it. If you plan to trim a bottom, you're going to go thicker. So I like to leave about, not quite 1/4 inch if I'm going to trim a bottom. A little less, 3/8 of an inch. If I'm not, you can go thinner. You can even go down to about 1/8 of an inch thick. And a really easy way to check your bottom thickness, especially when you're starting out, is you're going to take a needle tool, and I show this all the time. You get it dirty, and then you press it in, and when you pull it out, you can see a little area. You do that again. And so you can see how deep it is. It's right to there. And then you just go back in and compress it again to get rid of those two little holes, those pinholes we just made. And you notice when I'm throwing, I always have a connection. My hands are always connected to each other. You know, this gives you a more stable position to work from. Same with your body posture. You know, keep your back nice and straight. Don't hunch your shoulders. Don't hunch your back. You want to think about good posture while you're working. All right, now we're going to pull up the sides. How many ounces does a 1.25 ounce mug hold? Well, you know, depends. There's no one answer. These wide bottom mugs might not hold as much as one that has a narrow bottom but has a wider belly in the middle. So it just depends. You know, they will hold between 12 and 16 ounces, depending on the shape you make. So that's something that will be determined by the shape you're making. So we're just pulling up. Just grab that wall, and as we pull up, we're making sort of a volcano shape. Want to angle it in a bit. Keep an eye on your speed. Don't go too fast. I have a bit of a speed issue. If there were, like, throwing police, they would stop me for speeding. but one of my best tips for students is imagine when we're pulling upwards that there's a string hanging here in the center. And as you're pulling up, you actually want to pull towards that string hanging in the center of your pot. Hey, Wilmington, North Carolina. Might be down your way in November. My godson is getting married then. So that could be something. All right, back on track. So we're gonna just pull up one more time. So this will be our third pull. And usually that's how many pulls I do for thinning the wall. So my wall is a nice even thickness. Go inside and make sure I get all of that water and slip that's down in there out. You tend to go fast too, Amy. Yeah, speed demons. Now we're gonna start shaping it a bit. I mean, it has a nice rudimentary shape as it is, but I want something more defined. So I'm gonna use this wooden rib. I'm gonna come right in and I'm gonna start at the base. Just gonna press it in. And so that's the diameter that I have for the bottom. And then I'm gonna pull up, pressing out from the inside. And you notice the rib, I'm not holding it straight on, I actually have it at an angle. And clay does build up on the side. And this is doing a couple things for me. It's compressing the clay. It's allowing me to scrape away excess clay that's on the surface, which gives me more working time with my clay. And it gives me something to press against from the inside so I can shape it. So we've made mugs this shape before, remember? We did these kind of modern mugs a few months ago. But we want something more defined for our mug's neck. So you see I just got my hands wet. Just gonna go in, starting about halfway down the pot, and I'm gonna collar up. We're just gonna do that a few times. So these mugs are travel mugs. They used to be travel mugs. I don't think they call them travel mugs anymore. Before we had cup holders in cars, there was a time before cup holders, folks. Cup holders haven't always existed. I remember being a little kid and maybe there'd be one cup holder in a car. And if you wanted a travel mug, you needed something with a wide bottom. And often these mugs would have a rubberized mat or something stuck to them so that they wouldn't slide around, and people would put them on their dashboards, believe it or not, and would drive around with them. So now we're going to turn the rib. So I'm using the rounded side. This is a standard pottery rib. It just comes in your basic pottery toolkit. It's like rib 101. We used to have a wide bottom mug that got really narrow at the top, held heat longer. Yeah. So how hard is it to start wide and bring it in narrow? It's not at all. Did you see how I narrowed that in? I mean, we could keep going. The shape's basically done. You know, this is pretty close to done. We can, you know, do some details if you want. And you can play with the shape. You know, you can make it more oil can-y. You can make it more modern and give it more angular look. You can give it a more bulbous look, add more curves to it. You know, I like to use, let me find it. Oh, and the clay I'm using is B-Mix from Laguna. It's a Cone 5 clay, which is really nice and smooth, and it's a light white cream color. So these red ribs make it really nice to shape your piece. Look at this. And we can collar it in even more. I'm pressing in with the rib actually into the clay. Do you see that happening? So the great thing about this is if you don't fill it up any further than about here with your liquid, if you slosh it, it's not actually going to come out. So if you have someone in your life that has, you know, any issues holding things and a little shaky, which, you know, many of us can be that way from time to time, this mug will prevent spilling out of it because everything, if you don't fill it up higher than about here, will stay down inside the mug because the angle that the liquid will be at as it comes sloshing up, it'll just slosh right back down in. So it's a really brilliant shape. And that neck is the key. So I think we'll neck in just a tiny bit more. I'll show you that collaring again. So I'm just making a triangle with my fingers. And we're just pressing inward a bit. That's kind of it right there. So here's a version, right? This is one way. Let's compress our rim. We're going to make a second one though. I'll show you one very similar. We're just going to add a few more details to it. I'm going to scrape. See how I just scrape all this off? This will help the piece dry a little faster. And if I wanted to keep working it, it would give me a longer workability time. All right, let's get a wooden clay knife. We're going to do a little pre-trimming trimming. Come down here. Just do a slight undercut with the wooden knife. Gives me a place for the wire to easily slide through. And also, if I wasn't actually going to trim a foot onto this piece, it would just basically make the bottom. All right, let's trim this off. We'll put another, looks like a little beaker. It does look like a beaker. Yeah, I mean, this would be a lovely vase too, this form here. So many things. When I look at a pot, I don't ever see one thing. There's so many uses. Put that over here. So these are the inserts. I told you I love them. And then this underneath is just a piece of shelf liner that I got from local store. Cut it to fit and stuck it under there so my bat doesn't wibble wobble. Sometimes had a cork in the top. Oh, in the early 70s. Yeah. And then they switched to having like the plastic, the harder plastic tops and the rubberized tops nowadays. Nowadays, travel mugs have the smaller bottoms so they fit in cup holders. But I still like that shape, that kind of wide bottom shape. All right, so we're ready to do another one. Same amount of clay. I'm going to start with that. What's the diameter of the top? How tall is it? How many inches? How many pounds? How many centimeters? Well, let's take a look. We all want to know, right? The thing is, I'm going to tell you all something. It doesn't matter, really, in the big picture in pottery. You can make yours a little bigger than mine or a little smaller. There's no hard and fast rules. But just to give you an idea, this one is about 3 1/3. No, a little less. Almost 3 1/4. No, we'll say 3 1/3 inches wide on the top, and then the height is going to be 4 1/4. So it'll shrink. This is B-Mix, so it's going to be a squat mug. Pull it in. Ha ha ha. There. Now you can see. I think that's a great vase shape. But we're going to put handles on them and make them into mugs. So I encourage you when you're making pots to make many in a series. Try to set a goal for yourself to make 5, 6, 8, 10, however many you can make, working in one particular shape. And what will happen is pot number 1 you'll make, and as you're working on pot number 2, you'll make corrections and make it better, and the same with number 3, number 4, number 5. So by the time you get to the last one you made, especially if it's a new shape for you, you'll have refined it to a style and to a point that you really like. And that's how you develop new forms. So we're going to make this one about 4 1/2 inches, right? So the rim of the other one wasn't that much smaller. What it was is the neck is what's smaller, and that's the key. It's not so much the rim being tinier, it's that neck. Let me cone up one more time. That's the big secret, collaring in that neck. All right, let's see where we are. I don't normally measure when I'm throwing, but for you all, I will do it gladly. So we're going for 4.5, and I have, just eyeballing it, I don't know if you all can see that, I have exactly 4.5. Oftentimes I'll make lids I don't measure anymore. I can just look at it and make the lid the right size. And that's part of doing something so many times. I have made thousands and thousands of them, so it's just, this is what I do. It's my job. All right, here we go. We're opening it up again, pressing down into our center. Opening up, compressing the bottom. No, when I'm alone in the studio, I don't talk to myself, just to you. Although you might think so. So we're just going to compress this in. I do sometimes find myself every once in a while saying something out loud, and I'll just be like, oh, nobody's here but me. So you've been doing the technique with the webbing with your fingers as natural chamois. Doing it with your knuckle right now makes it really nice to compress the curve inwards. Yes, right? Yeah, our hands are best tools we got. All right, let's go ahead and open this up. Remember, we have that string hanging in the center that we're pulling towards. Nice, gentle, even pull. See how we get this volcano shape? Pulling towards that string hanging right here. Let's do that again. You want to do all your thinning at the beginning. This one might end up being a little taller. Ooh, little thin here. See what's happening there? Let's see if we can press it in enough and not lose it. If you go too fast, sometimes you'll make it thinner in spots. See if I got it. I'm going to use my rib and see if I fix it. Often you can save it. All right, I think we got it. So I got an area that's thinner down there, but it will be all right. Now we can go ahead and start shaping a bit. Grab that. I'm just going to use the red rib. Nope, I'm going to use the wood. Not everybody uses ribs, and you don't have to. I really like how smooth we can get the surface with them, especially if you plan to do carving on it. All right, now let's color in. Made this one a little taller. I might have had a tiny bit more clay on this piece than the other one. And it's amazing that even just 5-6 ounces more will make this much of a difference in the size of a piece, but it can. So in this case, you know, if you're making a series and you want them to be consistent, although this one's kind of fun, isn't it? With this tall, tall top. It's like a chimney. I think we'll keep it. I think we'll keep the chimney shape. Yeah, how nice is that? All right, let's go ahead and see the shape. We'll use that plastic rib. It's actually it's made of silicone, I believe. What do you guys think of that? Let's give it more of a belly. A little more belly. So I'm just pressing out from the inside. And then we'll go back in and collar again. You love this mug shape and are motivated to try it. Oh, I hope you do. I hope you try it. Mugs come in so many shapes and sizes. They're a great form to practice shape with. Look how cool that turned out. I really like it. And then we'll flare it out a little more at the top. So people will say when they're buying pots, you know, half of it is if you make pots, the other half's selling pots, right? So people will say when they're buying pots, they want to buy it, but they always are hesitant, you know? And so I find people saying, well, how will I wash it? I can't get my hand down in it. And I always tell them, you can get these great things. They're like, you know, sponges on a stick. And you can wash it that way. You can also put it in a dishwasher. What do you guys think of that shape? That's kind of funky. I think we'll keep it. I'm going to go ahead and clean up the bottom now. If I wanted to make it shorter, I could have simply taken the needle tool and just gone in. I could just go in like this and take all this off. Just cut it all off in a ring. But I think we're going to leave it. So we compress our rim. And then again, I was talking about the webbing. You can use that in between your fingers as a natural chamois. You know, it used to be we'd always have a little chamois to wrap over the rims, but you can use the webbing in between your fingers, and what that does is it rounds over these sharp edges. It needs something more though. It's not done. This part here needs something. I think it needs a little decorative element. So I'm just going to press in with this rib and pull it out onto the, so I pulled it out onto the rib a bit. Let's see if we can get this. And press in here. So we changed it up a little, made it a tiny bit more decorative. Definitely is heading down the vase path, I think, but it still will be a nice mug. All right, let's take this off and let's see if we can put handles on the others. Is the bottom still, no. Is the bottom small enough to put in a travel mug holder? Probably not. The point of these is not to be a travel mug in the modern sense. These are old school travel mugs before we had cup holders. The purpose is a wide bottom mug is because it's not as easy to spill. And that's what we want. We want a mug that, you know, can take some bumping around and isn't gonna slosh out its contents. So will these fit? I doubt it. Could you make it? You could make a shape that would have a taper first and then belly out and then come back in if you wanted to, certainly. And if you did that, then it might fit in that cup holder. But here's what we have, this guy. Oh, he's kind of fun. You like this one even more. So let's grab the first one I made and I'll hold them both up so you can see the different shapes. This one is actually wider, just a tiny bit, I can tell. You can probably tell too. So I went just a smidge wider. So it must have been 4 3/4 on this one, and this one must have been 4 1/2. Could have gone a little wider. That's okay though. So you get a couple options, and there you get to see it from like the side, top. Measurements. Want the measurements for this one here that we just did? So we know the bottom is 4 1/2. So let's see, the top is going to be 3 1/4. And then height-wise, it is 5 1/4 inches tall. So it's a whole inch taller. A whole inch taller for this one here. A wider mug bottom has a lower center of gravity, so it's harder to tip over. Exactly. And that was the point, right? We wanted to make things that would be harder for someone to accidentally knock over. Or when you sit it down, if it sits, you sit it down a little forcefully, it won't be sloshing everywhere. So two little options for mug shapes. There's unlimited shapes out there. All right, we're gonna trim, maybe. Let me see how these are. I have a feeling they're gonna be too wet. I just threw these this morning. Well, we're gonna do a very gentle trimming. All right, so I am just going to trim a little bit off this one here, just a tiny bit, you know, mostly just to clean up the roughness that we have going on there. Let me grab a trimming tool. What do I got nearby? Here we go. This is a Dolan 444. I think this is the tool that they only made a limited edition of, but it's just one of their like triangle shape tools. Any trimming tool will do though. It's not about the tool. We just want to get this edge cleaned up. But I do love Dolan. I love Dolan's tools and knives. They make great products. Nice family-owned company, good people. All right. So there's the side cleanup. Very easy, right? And I don't really want to put a foot on these mugs because I do like putting a little rubberized mat on the bottom if I'm going to use it for travel. But we can tap it a tiny bit to have a slight little bit of a curve. Not a lot, just a tiny bit. Okay. Now, let's turn the wheel off so you don't send your piece flying after you've made it. That would be bad. And I've got some, by the magic of television, handles. But I'm going to pull a couple for you so that I'll pull one. It'd be a great small pitcher. Yes, if it's going to be a pitcher, you need to put your spout on it before now. This is way too dry. If I tried to pull a spout on this, it would crack. This is way, way too dry for a pitcher spout. But you throw it, wait about 15 minutes after you throw a piece, then you can put your spout on. All right, I gotta go grab a piece of clay for making a handle. So let me grab that. I got my block of clay over here. I say how much I love my split-legged apron for wheel throwing. I don't think I have. Charlie Savat made this for me from Play in the Mud Designs. She makes a bunch of gorgeous pottery aprons. So if you're in the market, check her out. All right, so I've got my block of clay. When I'm pulling handles, you know, you can use the handheld extruders from Diamond Core Tools, or you can just reach in and get a quarter of a pound, maybe, maybe of clay, approximately, and you just pull that off. And let's go ahead and I roll it out like a fat carrot, right? And I have a lot of handle pulling tutorials. I've done it a lot because you always need to put handles on it. I was thinking about that whole how many hours it takes to master something, and I can tell you I have mastered pulling handles. I've made enough handles in my career. So I could almost call myself a master handle puller, but I don't like to give myself a title like that. But technically, if we wanted to go by how many it takes, I've 10,000 hours pulling handles. How about just making 10,000 handles? All right, so we just start pulling. This is a thumb pull. You put your fingers behind it, your thumb in the center, and you pull straight down. It's pretty self-explanatory. And then we have the U pull. You can make a little U, and you grip it, and you can U pull from the back, U pull from the front, and then the scissor pull, where you basically make a scissor, and this is thinning it down. And every time we do these motions, we are lengthening and thinning our handle. And you want to make your handle big enough so that it matches the shape you've made. So if you make these teeny tiny, thin, delicate handles for a big, beefy mug, it's not going to work. You need to have them match. And I try to get the thickness of the handle, the side of the handle, to be close to the thickness of the pot. It doesn't have to be exactly, but close. So that's a good gauge if you're starting out making handles. All right, so you'll pull a handle, but you can't put it on right away because look, it's too floppy. So you got to sit it to the side, 30 minutes usually. depending how dry your studio. Some folks I've been talking to lately, it's so dry in their studio, it would probably flash dry and be ready in 3 minutes, but not in mine. So I just make this cute little kind of curly thing, and I sit it off to the side. And usually I make more than one because I'll have more than one mug made. So we'll put that there for later. Okay, now we can attach the handle. Did I trim without the mug being centered? Absolutely. Yep. You know, you get to a point where you throw all those rules and preconceived notions out the window because it doesn't always matter. When I was younger, I might have been like, oh, I can't believe it. It does not make enough of a difference. It's just the hair off of center, so it wasn't a big deal. Okay, so I've got a couple mugs, and I've got a couple handles, but we get to pick which handle goes on which mug. And you might think, well, they're the same, right? The handles are the same, but they're not. There's always tiny differences in handles and in mugs, so you find the one that works the best. I think I want this one here for tonight. And before I put this on, let me talk to you all about the process when we're making mugs, when we're wheel throwing mugs. So the making happens, you throw it. In my studio with my humidity, the piece will sit either all day and at the end of the day be ready for trimming, or halfway through the day I cover them with plastic lightly, and then the next day I can come in and I trim them in the morning. I uncover them with plastic, I check them, I see how they are. If I haven't turned them over yet, I turn them over so the bottoms can start to dry. And then if they're ready at that point, I will trim them. So this is usually the second day we'll trim. And while I'm trimming, I'll get that all done, and after they're all trimmed, I will pull my handles. And after they're trimmed, they sit upside down as well, right? Because we want the bottoms to dry up enough. And I'll pull my handles. Sometimes I'll pull my handles before trimming if they're really dry and I want to get those handles on as soon as possible. So you pull your handles and you have your handles sitting there drying while you're trimming. If your trimming takes you longer than you meant it to, you can always cover your handles with plastic until you're ready to use them. So you make your handles. If they start to dry out too much, cover them with plastic. Finish trimming as soon as your trimming is done. And as long as your fingerprints aren't showing and the pieces aren't tacky, then you're good to go for putting on your handles. Now, I don't like to wait too long before putting a handle on, because if this mug dries out, I'm going to have a struggle getting this handle to go on and not crack. You can attach it, but what will happen is as the pieces continue to dry, the handle could be wetter, or if the handle is drier, it's going to dry at a different rate than the actual mug, and they can crack away from each other. So my suggestion is to try to gauge the timing so that your mug handles and mug bodies are at the same level of dryness. Another thing that helps is you can use this thing called magic water to join it. I didn't grab my magic water, but I have the recipe on ClayShare resources under recipes, and it's just sodium silicate, soda ash, and water, and you use that as a joining medium to attach your pieces, and it can help prevent cracking. And then I always cover everything with plastic. All right, is that enough information? Whew, there's a lot of information. All right, so we've got our handle, and I always want to make sure I have enough material to work with. This is a way big handle. I didn't need my handle to be this large, but if I was making a pitcher, I would have enough of a handle. So I'm going to just measure this for you guys to see. This is about 8 inches long. You do not need a handle that long. Usually 5 to 6 is enough. So let's trim it down. This clay gets wedged back up. You can use it to make more handles. You can use it to wedge up and make more mugs from it. So a 5-inch handle, let's just take a look, is going to get us to about here, and 6-inch will be down here. So it all just depends on the size of your mug and the kind of handle you want to make. You know, what I will often do is, I know this is way too long, so we're going to take some off already. But I'll put it up to the mug, and then we have this decision where, you can come a little closer, a lot closer actually. Where do you put this, right? Do you put it down here? Do you put it right up here at the top? Do you go really low and do a kind of crazy loopy thing like that? I mean, it's limitless, and it's personal preference. I really like putting them up high myself, but everybody does it differently. All right, so you've noticed I've kind of thinned this out, widened it a bit, and then I'll use a cookie cutter to trim it, and that gives it a more finished decorative edge. Yes, you can pull a handle off the mug if you like that look. I'm a big fan of my handles looking like they were attached instead of growing out, mostly because I have this decorative element here. It would look really funny if I had a clunky, smooth area there, so I don't tend to do that. So that's going to go there. Where's my bottom going to stop? Where is that bottom going to stop? I mean, you can have it here, go all the way to the bottom. That's pretty big, though. You could come up and make kind of something like that, right? See how that looks. So you can play with the shape a lot. I think this one's going to need a little more taken off. Let's just see where we're at. I think that's going to do it. Now I'll measure it for you, just so you'll know exactly how long this one is. This one is 6 inches. 6-inch handle on this is what I'm putting on. All right, I'm going to do the same thing on this end with the cookie cutter. And my friend, Debbie Dela Cruz, who owns De La Design Gifts, has seen me use my cookie cutter so many times. She went above and beyond and made this little guy right here, which is in 2 sizes, a big and a small cutter. It's a cutter. Isn't this crazy? It's red usually, but it's covered in clay right now. And you can use the big side to cut the top and the small side to cut the bottom. So you get, you know, correspondingly sized cuts. Of course, you can always use the flower cookie cutter if you want, but if you're shopping at Debbie's site, you might want to toss one of these in your cart because they're great. So I'll use her cutter on the bottom one. So see, it's a little different shape, but not much. So you're having trouble with your handles cracking at the main curve. They've been covered with plastic too. All right, so you're having cracking here, right? That's handles too wet for mug when they crack like that. So I think it completely sounds like you have a drying issue. What's happened is the wet handles are trying to dry and they're cracking here. Also, when they were made, you said they weren't pulled. If they were dry, so if you hand built them, if the clay was a little dry when you started bending it, you can end up with cracking issues. All right, so our top's going to be here and our bottom is going to be down there. What do we think? We like that? I like that. Kevin likes that. Well, that's it. We're doing that. I'm just going to move this onto a little board. Let's go ahead and slip and score. And again, I would normally use my magic water for this, but I didn't grab it. So I'm just going to line this up. Most important part coming up. You want to make sure that it is completely plumb, right? Up and down. If not, you'll have your handle off to the side. Now, an interesting thing about wheel-thrown mugs is they often unwind a little bit. So sometimes, even though you put it straight on, it's going to unwind because we threw it in one direction. And crazily enough, as the clay dries and shrinks, it moves a tiny bit in the other direction. It's very small, though. Usually you do not see it. All right, let's go ahead and attach this. I slipped and scored, and now I'm just going to press this in. Now I've got that mark at the bottom, so I know this is where I want to be. Make sure we're lined up. I can see I got to go this way just a tiny bit. See, because if your handle's way over there, look at that. That's going to make you crazy for life, right? So turn it towards you, look at it, and then attach it. I find a lot of times when I'm teaching how to make, especially how to make a handle on video like this, I turn it to you all, and you get to see how it looks, and I don't. And then when I turn it back around, I'm like, oh, it's slightly crooked. See, I'm just using my thumb to flatten it out a bit. Just gently pressing it outward. And then we'll clean up any slip that squeezes out. If you get little tiny surface cracking here or in here, that's because slip has squeezed out, and as it dries slower, so it pulls apart just a bit. They're surface cracks. They're not structural, but they're just slightly annoying and a little unsightly. It's not the end of the world or a piece, but you know, just wipe that away and you won't have that problem. All right, we've got the handle on now. Let's shape it a little bit. Put a little volume in it. Look at that. We have this belly. I feel like the handle has to somehow relate to that. So I'm just going to shape it. And you'll find when shaping handles, small, slow motions work best than fast, quick motions, because you can kind of stretch it and shape it. But if you go really fast, you can crack the clay. So, all right, I'm going to clean that up. I think it's going to go like that. Nice big handle to grab onto, right? And there's some bits to clean up. I'll come back and clean this up after it's leather hard. But I'll put this out. I'll have a row of them on a board. I will have plastic. Here, I'll show you how I cover it. I got some clay down here for throwing the boards, but look. This is all you do. Just drape it like that and let it dry. And what this does is create a nice environment where the humidity is controlled, and it helps the handle and the mug even out their moisture level. So that if you're having cracking problems where the handle joined, or maybe how the handle was formed, this will help alleviate some of that. And then the next day I come out and I check on it, see how things are going, maybe uncover it for a little bit, maybe cover it just a little looser, and usually they stay covered for a week or two before the plastic comes off all the way. Sometimes 3 weeks, depending on what's going on. So that's really how hard I push. You have a big fear of handle falling off, so you spread it down and bend it into the mug. You don't have to do that to it. No, I mean, you don't have to smear it into there. This is joined on, and the way that I do it, you know, I'm rolling. You see how I'm mostly rolling my fingers when I'm joining, and that rolling, you can hear the squishing when you first join it. It's not making that noise now because the slip and everything has bonded, but that's really it. That's all you have to do. And they'll stay, I mean, they stay on, right? If you find that your handle's too floppy, wait a little longer before attaching it. You could also make a little support, you know, with that leftover bit of clay. And you roll out a little kind of thing like this, right? Funny looking in your studio. Everybody will wonder what you're making, but they work great for holding things up. Or if you've got another mug, right? Or whatever. What do we got? I got a plastic bottle. Oh, look at that. That'll hold it up too. So if your handle's too floppy and you got to get them on, you can't wait because your studio time is over for the day and you got to leave, go ahead and put them on and use a support of some kind. So there we have it. A cauldron mug. Ooh, I love that name. So here we have the wide-bottomed mug with handle attached. How fun was that? Let me fix this so I can see you all again. Will I show how to hand build these mugs? Well, yes, that's already in the works. So I'm actually doing a class for my premium members, so there'll be a ClayShare full-length class on the hand-built version of one of these mugs. It's already made. I just am in the middle of filming it. So yeah, the hand-built version will be happening. Very exciting. You could turn the mug upside down. Sometimes gravity does give it a nice shape. Yes. So if you turn it upside down, I will suggest you make sure that the handle has plenty of room to sag, because if not, it will hit. So this might not be enough of a space. You understand what I'm saying? Like if we sit this down, just see. No, we can sit it here. But if you sit it down and you don't have enough of, oh yeah, we'll put it on the side one. Here. See, we got a little gap. But if your handle's really soft and really floppy, it's going to flop. It's going to hit this, right? And then you're going to get a flat spot from this. So you want to hang it off a ledge. Hang your handle off a ledge. Oh no. No, it's fine. Hang your handles off a ledge and you get some really beautiful shapes. Now this one, you can tell I could turn it all over the place. It's not moving. It's stiff enough that the shape is not changing. But yeah, you can always, one of my friends, that's how she does all her mugs with the handles. Like she lets gravity shape them for her. Bethany Cohen, if you want another potter to check out. Bethany Cohen, or Beth Cohen. Clay Girl is her Instagram handle. So you can check her out. She and I were resident artists at Saratoga Clay Art Center many, many moons ago. But she's awesome potter down in Florida. That's how she does her handles. And she works mostly in porcelain. So there's a little homework. Go check out Beth's work. All right, everyone. Let's see if we got any other questions before we go. No, add a tiny coil of clay where the handle connects to mug. If you want to, you can. I do not, but if you feel you need that, there is nothing stopping you from putting that in there. You go for it. All right, there we have it. Cute little wide bottom mugs. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy. All right, everyone. I will see my premium members in just a few minutes. Everybody else, I won't be here next week. Oh no, not on Wednesday. Are we going to do on Thursday instead? I won't be here because I have to go before the town and have a hearing, because I have to present my brand new studio building and business plan or business to the town to get approval so that I can actually build my new studio barn. Yeah, that's next week. So I'll keep you posted. It'll probably be Thursday night live, not Wednesday. That's all right. All right, premium members, I'll see you in a bit. We're going to do the gourd, vases, and lanterns. Everybody else, I'll see you sometime next week. Take care. Bye, everyone.